Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Tuesday, March 29th. I'm joined today by Alison McConnell. How's it going, Alison?
Very well, thank you.
I fine and dandy myself. So listen, today's first topic actually comes off the back of your article that's up on the site today. And while I'm at it, website subscriptions. We have decided to offer up a new deal for you all ahead of the derby, which is £1 for the first 2 months. So if you go to celticway.co.uk/subscribe, it's down at the bottom there. Get on that. I'll also stick it in the comments so there's no excuses. But anyway, yes, Alison, your article today, there's a bit in there that made me think, that's a good shout for the briefing. So a lot of us are focusing on the kind of Kyogo factor and Yakimakis' form, etc. But you pointed out that middle of the park is probably where the real conundrum lies. So I thought, let's have a closer look at that conundrum then. First of all, can we agree? I think it's two places we're speaking about here, isn't it? I mean, there's nobody inhabiting this earth who thinks Callum McGregor's even up for debate.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Callum McGregor's probably one of your first names on the team sheet just now. He'll play. He really is a linchpin in the heart of the midfield. But I would agree. I think the other two places, there's arguably 5 contenders for them. About who could go in and join him. I suppose it depends whether or not Tom Rogic is fit for selection, or whether or not the injury that kept him out of international duty keeps him out of the squad. But I think Rio Hatate, Matt O'Reilly, Nir Bitton, I think are all viable contenders to start and to play. And I think it is an interesting conundrum to have. David Turnbull's also back in the mix. Got a bit of game time. I'm not sure that he would be quite match fit enough yet to start, but certainly coming back into the mix as well.
I mean, good. Glad we've got it out of the way that the Masked Crusader stays first and foremost. And I think you'd imagine that a lot of Celtic fans will be hoping he's rested for Scotland as well. You mentioned it there. The other thing hanging over the midfield is Tom Rogic's injury. He picked up against Ross County. It kept him out of international duty with Australia. And Ange Postecoglou used the words medium term last week when talking about it. Now, we still don't know if that means he's totally out of contention. Ange will 100% be asked about it later in the week. But that then opens up the possibility to look on the bright side of it, of starting the same midfield trio that dismantled Rangers 3-0 at Parkhead last month. So, I mean, let's take Rio Hatate first. He has had a wee dip in form since then, you would argue. I would contend that he arrested that with the display against Ross County. I thought it was excellent. He's now away with the Japan international squad. Didn't get any game time against Australia in the last game, but given that they've qualified, he very well might get some shortly, and they actually play that the team line should be out relatively soon. They play Vietnam at around 11:30 UK time this morning. So given that he might get game time and then face a lot of travel, is there any chance, or do you think it's probably he is one of the first contenders?
I definitely think he is a contender. I think much will depend on whether or not Rogic is fit. I suspect Rogic would fit. If he was fit, he would play. And I think if that was the case, it leaves leaves the door open for Rio Hatate than Matt O'Reilly. I think you've seen Matt O'Reilly and Tom Rogic maybe just very similar in the middle of the park. I think, but I think if Rogic is out, then you might see Hatate and O'Reilly both start and play. I think I was curious to read some of the quotes that came back from Japan over the weekend about Rio Hatate, talking about the difficulties that he'd experiencing and acclimatising to Scottish football and just the differences in culture and coming in, because to the naked eye, it didn't look like he struggled at all initially. He made a fairly strong start to his Celtic career from the day he made his debut to then going to Tynecastle, and then the performance and the 2 goals against Rangers. I thought it was a fairly sublime announcement of his arrival. So I was tickled to read some of his quotes about how hard he'd found it, and suggesting that really he'll get better the more he settles. I think he definitely has something to offer in that game. I think he gives you a attacking element. I think his work rate is good. My suspicion is that if Rogic is unfit, it will be a midfield three of Callum McGregor, Hatate, and Matt O'Reilly.
And that's the same midfield that dismantled them at Parkhead. I don't think anybody would have much problem with that. We've got a couple of comments here. Brian Robert, any one of those five, he's happy. William Lamont, Cotton Wool with Rogic, and just nod after Rogic will start. That's a big shout. David Bradley's the opposite. He doesn't think Rogic will make it. Jason Lee mentioning O'Reilly as well. You can bet they double up on Hatate this time. I think they might have learned a lesson with that one. No, I mean, it's a fair point. You mentioned someone else there in the initial kind of spiel is Nir Bitton. Now, reports in Israel suggest he's being released early to come back and prepare for the game, so he will be available, you would think. He's played in some of the biggest games of the season so far, don't forget. So, I mean, he didn't start against County before the break, but he did in the Livy game before that, and he was quietly excellent, I think we both agreed. So what will it take for him to get the nod at Ibrox, Alison? Is he a genuine contender to start with McGregor pushing forward and at maybe the expense of someone like Hatate?
Yeah, I think it's a consideration. I think when you know how the game will be played, I think Rangers know that they need to win this game. I think realistically, 3 points for Rangers puts the cat amongst the pigeons again in terms of the title race. I think Rangers will really go for it, but I think both teams will. I think it'll be a very open game. So I think it depends on how you want to set up and how you want to play. My own suspicion is that Ange Postecoglou will go for the jugular. I think he'll really want to go and attack Rangers the way that they did at Celtic Park. I think he'll want the same energy, the same conviction and the same composure. I think Bitton is a more defensive element. I think what you can get sometimes is a more industrial performance in the middle of the park. And it depends really how he wants to set up. But my own suspicion is that he'll go for a more attacking front.
Patrick McLaughlin wanting the full starting 11. I think there's a good chance that happens. David Bradley disagreeing with you, saying he wouldn't start Rogic even if he was fit. Big call. Pete McGee, yeah, they're all fit. Got to be O'Reilly and Hatate with Cal McGregor. Actually, I think that's probably going to be my choice if all are fit. And that's including if Rogic was fit. But I mean, Matt O'Reilly's getting a lot of love here. He got a lot of love yesterday in the power rankings when he came in straight in at the top 10. I've been really impressed with him since he joined. He's away with Denmark under 21s just now. They play Belgium tonight, around about 7 p.m. UK time, I think it is. Now, assuming he comes through that unscathed, I do think he starts at Ibrox, Alison. And I do think it might be regardless of whether Tom Rogic is fit.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think probably the two of them are vying for the same position. I think he's an athletic player. I think people have been very surprised at what he offered. I would agree. I think he's been excellent. I think his performances have been very good. I think he's a threat and
the Gremlins have got it again.
What you're going to get from him, he really does help move the team forward in a sense. Yeah, my suspicion is that he will also start.
Now, David Turnbull, again, you mentioned him at the start. Let's just talk about him for a wee minute. He returned from injury against County, technically, obviously, but after so long out, I think that we both agree it's an impact sub-role on Sunday rather than a start. It would need to be the next couple of days international break really would have to take its toll on the options available to Ange Postecoglou. Or on the other hand, he's had 2 full weeks at Lennoxtown since, so you never know. But is that kind of how you see it as well?
I'm sorry, I appear to have completely lost all sound. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I'm struggling to hear you. But
I can hear you. Yeah, can you not hear still? No. I'll take a couple of comments while Alison tries to sort our Wi-Fi gremlins again. Well, that's a good. It's just me now. It's just me now. No, that's a good point. I think it'll be Giakoumakis, William. I don't think it will be Kyogo. Tony made the point yesterday he would have him on the bench regardless. Hello, Alison, you back?
Yeah, I think I was muted. I'm not sure if I was talking just a bit of rubbish there or not.
No, I could hear you. I think we could hear you. I think it was your end, but no. So did you hear what I said about David Turnbull?
No, I missed that.
No, I was just saying. I think he returned from injury against County, obviously, but given it was so long out, do we all agree that it's probably an impact sub role on Sunday rather than a start, even though he's had the kind of 2 weeks at Lennoxtown?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I think when you consider the amount of time that he's been out for, I just don't think he's played enough games. I don't think he's had enough game time to come straight back into contention for a start.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, you know that he has a bit of quality. I think he could be a fairly strong change to make within the game. But I just don't think that, given the amount of time he's had, I just don't think he'll be fit enough to come straight back in.
Mickey Porter having a wee dig there at you, Alison, get 50p in the meter. That's an interesting one. I think that's maybe overblown a wee bit. What do you think? Hatate's discipline, I think maybe that tackle against Dundee United is maybe sticking in the mind there.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen much overall that would concern you. I think I take the point. I think on another day that might have been a red card, depending on the call made by an official. But I think overall, I don't think you've seen anything that would suggest he's a loose cannon or anything that would lead you to think that he could end up getting himself in trouble in the game. I think he's been fairly composed. I think that was a one-off. I don't think I would really buy into that.
The one thing I've said about Hatate since it became concrete that he was going to be signing was that it's even the first couple of games when he came out away with the kind of performances and the technical quality and the goal against Hearts and all that, and even the 2 goals against Rangers, that as much as that was the eye-catching stuff, that for me it was always going to be the work rate and the tenacity that goes along with that would actually keep him in the team and keep him kind of endearing himself to the fans. Now that tackle, I tweeted out on the night, I thought a yellow was the correct decision. I still think it was the correct decision. But I'm thinking that's maybe sticking in the mind there a wee bit with the discipline comment. I don't think you've seen all that much else to suggest that he's, as you say, a loose cannon or anything like that. And I think that's part and parcel of the kind of tenacious side of his game, that occasionally there might be a wee bit of an overspill. But I don't think it was. I still don't think it was a red card that game. But where are we? Jason Lee actually talking about Hatate there, high risk, high reward. Suppose you could characterise him like that, yeah. David making the point here though that kind of tackle and probably will be off in the derby, which is I suppose what you're thinking in terms of depends on how the referee chooses to see it as much as anything else.
I think especially when you're at Ibrox, you have to consider you've got 700 Celtic fans in and 50,000 home supporters. You know that there'll be a vocal element to any fouls or any tackles with Celtic players. I think it's human nature that influences referees. I think that's just it's probably subconscious, but I think definitely. I think if there was a tackle like that at Ibrox, I think you would just know with the roar of the crowd and everything that put it this way, it gives a decision for the referee to make. But to be honest, I think it's a bit overcooked. I think he had one tackle that's maybe a bit ambiguous. I would agree with you. I thought it was a yellow. On another day, it might have been a red, depending on another official's viewpoint of it. But I don't think you've seen that too often from him. I think he's robust. I think he works hard. I think he is quite physical. But I don't think you've seen anything that would lead you to think he's a dirty player or a risk in terms of temperament.
No, I agree. I don't. To be fair, I don't think that's necessarily what William was saying, but he did say about the discipline, and I thought I'd throw that up. But a couple of comments about Bitton coming in. Alan Robertson backing him right up there, saying experience and physicality great to have on Sunday. And just played him in a couple of big games. As I say, he was excellent in the semi-final against St Johnstone. He was good in the final. He played. He was key to that Livingston win. Albeit all of those are a different kettle of fish to Ibrox. I know that, but. He has played a few times and he's played really well. The opposite end of the spectrum there, Bitton is 100 times more likely to get himself sent off than Reo Hatate. Do you think of that? It's probably, I mean, it's literally true because he's been sent off twice this season.
Well, I'm thinking of the Midfield game and I'm thinking of the game at Ibrox too, where he was sent off. Yeah, I think there is an element with Bitton sometimes where you think his discipline can be problematic, and I would probably tend to agree. I think more so than Reo Hatate, and I would temper that by saying I think he recovered from that red card this season, and I did think he found his feet. I think he stabilised, and I think by and large he's been stable when he's come in. I think he'll be happy enough with what he's contributed over the course of the campaign. I think there's games where he's performed particularly well. I would agree with you about that Livingston game. I think he's probably man of the match actually for that game. I think he is in contention. I definitely think, depending on how Ange Postecoglou wishes to set up, I think he definitely will be in mind. Whether or not he does enough to go into the starting lineup remains to be seen. But I definitely think there'll be food for thought there, just by the way he's played over the course of this season.
All this talk about referees and giving decisions, David Holmes with a great point. That's an Ange Postecoglou point, I would say. Playing the game will win over giving referees a decision to make to begin with. So I think that's fair enough. It's a very Postecoglou way to think on it. There are three other midfielders that we've not mentioned that you'd imagine are very, very, very much long shots. Yusuke Deguchi, 6 minutes against Dundee United in the Cup was his last appearance. James McCarthy, 17 minutes in the same game. And then Ismail Assoro, which was 8 minutes, weirdly enough, in the 3-0 win over Rangers the last time he was cited. I take it we're in agreement, and I don't think, and tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, that anybody thinks they're in any sort of contention to start or even play potentially.
Yeah, I think the only way you would see any of them come to the fore in any shape or form is if there were a raft of injuries that at the minute you're unaware of. I think realistically, I don't think any of them are anywhere near the starting 11. Whether or not they're in the squad and on the bench is maybe another matter. But I don't think you would envisage any of them having done enough to start.
Yeah, I think this comment is what I'm going to use to wrap it up, to start wrapping it up. Jason Lee's comment, this is right up my street with my depth charts and all that. It's funny how nowadays we can discuss optimal lineups when before we were a bit threadbare. This is true. And this whole episode was just a neat trick for me to get my depth chart out for the midfielders. I think that was all. Before we properly wrap up, I just want to remind you what I said at the start. And if you enjoy this kind of chat, you'll probably enjoy the stuff on the website too. I would actually say it's even better. You don't need to listen to my actual voice. You can just read it. If you go to, as it says down below, celticway.co.uk/subscribe, give us a go. And as I said at the start, for a limited time, that subscription is just £1 for the first 2 months. So it's cheapest chips for you just now. Thanks for your contribution today, Alison. And thanks as always for your comments, guys. We'll see you all back here tomorrow.
Thank you.